Official stats show German economy shrank slightly less in the second quarter than originally estimated, though the 9.7% drop is still easily the worst on record. The Federal Statistical Office revised the quarter-on-quarter contraction in gross domestic product down from the 10.1% initially reported at the end of July. Despite the revision, it remained by far the steepest drop in 50 years that quarterly GDP figures have been recorded. South Korea's education ministry says offline classes will be banned in Seoul and the surrounding area amid the COVID-19 resurgence in the Seoul metropolitan area. All preschools, primary and secondary schools in Seoul and a surrounding province will switch to a full remote learning from Wednesday. High school seniors will be excluded from the restriction if they are required to take a college entrance exam later this year. An Italian-developed vaccine for COVID-19 has begun human trials. It's based on genetic engineering techniques. This phase of the trial will involve 90 healthy volunteers and will last into next year. Italy has had a recent surge in new infections, caused in part by young people returning from summer holidays in other European countries. The sentencing hearing for the gunman who killed 51 worshippers in a mass shooting at 2 New Zealand mosques has resumed in Christchurch. Families and survivors confronted 29-year-old Brenton Tarrant and Christchurch High Court. During the first day of hearing, prosecutors told the court that Tarrant had meticulously planned his attacks and was on his way to a third mosque before he was stopped. Tarrant pleaded guilty to 51 counts of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of terrorism. It was the first terrorism conviction in New Zealand history. Talks between West African mediators and Mali's military junta have failed to reach an agreement on the makeup of a transitional government. The officers now running Mali are seeking to prolong their rule until 2023, while West Africa's regional bloc has sought to restore the country to civilian rule. The junta maintains that former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta stepped down of his own free will rather than being forced out. Keïta is being held at a military barracks near Mali's capital and has reportedly said he does not want to return to politics. Reports say legendary sprinter Usain Bolt has tested positive for COVID-19. Bolt posted a video on social media and said he was self-isolating. The World 100 and 200 meters record holder just threw a party for his 34th birthday, which was attended by England footballer Raheem Sterling and several other sports stars. And that's the news. I'm Su Yi.
You are listening to Selfie, produced by China Plus.
Ending all absolute poverty by the end of this year is one of the major tasks for the Chinese government. As of the end of last year, the number of people living below the poverty line has significantly reduced from approximately 100 million in 2012 to 5.5 million. That's roughly 13 million people lifted out of poverty each year. That's according to the State Council Leading Group Office of Poverty Alleviation and Development. So how was it possible for the Chinese government to make such progress within a short period of time? Let's follow Dr. Robert Lawrence Kuhn to take an in-depth look into the campaign by traveling across the country. You're listening to an audio segment of the documentary Voices from the Frontline, China's War on Poverty, produced by CGTN. If you want to check out the video, please log on to CGTN's website, www.cgtn.com. I'm Robert Lawrence Kuhn. I've followed China for 30 years. Recently, I've been tracking President Xi Jinping's relentless pursuit of poverty alleviation. It's his signature program. He's staking his political capital on its success. To get a sense of what Xi seeks to accomplish, I've come to the Information Center of the State Council Office of Poverty Alleviation. All the data is here.
这张图这是全国的一个所谓扶贫 This is a map of poverty across China by the end of 2016.
On this interactive map, every poor family in China is tracked individually, and their data updated regularly.
The national system covers over 90 million, almost 100 million people. The data keeps changing. Some are lifted out of poverty, some are newly identified as impoverished.
Poverty in China is concentrated in western and inland regions, but it can occur almost anywhere.
In the province of Hainan, at the end of 2016, there were 320,000 people living in poverty, which is 5.5% of its total population. We can see the change in the size of the poor population in Hainan's Cheaptoyman County. In 2015, it was 26,000, and in 2016, it was 25,000. It continued to fall gradually in 2017. This shows the increasingly fewer poor people in Cheaptoyman County, Hainan Province.
我们12.8万个贫困村，每个村从县以上的公务员。
For 128,000 poor villages across China, each is assigned a team of 3 to 5 civil servants from above county-level departments as well as from state-owned enterprises or institutions. They are on government's payroll while taking poverty alleviation as their jobs.
How are the poor identified in a place like Hainan? How are they lifted out of poverty? What's the process? Who's doing it? I head to Hainan province to meet the man on the front line. Huang is 33 years old. He studied law in university. Before moving to Lingmen village, he worked a city job in Hainan's rural credit cooperative.
I voluntarily applied to work in the village. I remember the day I saw the job posting. Our child was 9 months old when I told my wife I wanted to work as the village secretary. She looked at me and asked me how long I'd be gone. I told her 1 year. And she said, if it's just for a year, you can go if you want to. I didn't expect that following my first term, there'd be this second term. Every day I go to the villages to talk to the people. I try to learn what kind of assistance the households need. If some financially challenged people want to raise cattle, for example, I can help them raise the money, like advising them to apply for a microloan. I used to work in government departments with no experience in the countryside. So, I often make use of my spare time at night to learn about rural areas, agricultural products, and skill training on farming and cultivation for poor households.
Huang tells me that the poverty alleviation program in villages like Lingmen gives poor villages subsidies for education, microloans, medical insurance, home restorations, and, if they are disabled, Social Security.
This way. At the beginning of this year, there were 13 households living below the poverty line. We've created an information sheet listing the assistance plan. This is Wang Jibiao. He was added to the list in January. There are 5 members in his family. 2 of them suffer from mental illness. These are all records we've created for the poor households. Let me give you a brief introduction. As for the recognition of impoverished households, after a series of procedures, we'll deliver the list of names confirmed in towns to the county government. After the county government gives its approval and confirms that the households on the list meet the standards, we'll upload their information into the National Poverty Alleviation System. Then, the State Council leading group of poverty alleviation and development in Beijing will have access to the information on the poor households. That is how we confirm the qualifications of the poor. The light is on in that house. We can knock and get in. This is a friend from the United States. We're now investigating potential poverty-stricken households. To better understand each family's income, can we have a look at your certificate of the right to the contracted management of land? We want to know your situation better.
Why don't you identify them as a poor household?
It's not up to us to decide. The villagers do by voting. His family is doing better than the criteria. Their per capita annual income is higher than poverty line of 3,305 RMB or $526. Yes, you do.
昨天用对付家长教育活动，在开始的沟通当中呢，我呢发现他的爱人对这个收入有点吞吞吐吐。
Yesterday, we went to the household of Li Guodong. In the beginning of our conversation, we found his wife was quite hesitant about the income. So, I doubt the authenticity of figures. I think Li Guodong is quite honest and cooperative. So I asked his wife to fetch some material and asked him again.
Areca nut is an important source of income for some local residents. Today, Huang takes me to pick areca nuts together with a local couple.
We need to get across the river.
Where to head up there? We must take off our shoes.
农村的工作很多都是他们一边干活，我呢搭把手。
I usually lend them a hand while they are working, and then we chat a little bit.
海南，自然环境很好。
Hainan has great natural conditions. Although it is in November, unlike the north, the climate here is still warm and humid, and the crops are still growing. In my view, people here can make a fortune as long as they work hard. For example, this couple can normally pick 300 to 350 kilogram areca nuts in one morning, and that will bring them 6,000 to 7,000 RMB or $1,000.
Huang's work is overseen by county party officials. They can show up at any time to oversee the process and look for signs of fraud and deception.
We will do a sample check. Recently, we found that certain households refuse to fully cooperate with our investigation. They hesitate to give us an accurate figure of their income.
While officials may not be told the whole truth, the villagers know each other's situations. The last step in deciding who is poor and who is not, and who can be said to have been lifted out of poverty, is what is called the Democratic Appraisal Meeting.
Today we are here for what we call a Democratic Appraisal Meeting, to assess 4 types of households: those that don't qualify for poverty relief, those that have fallen back into poverty, those that are newly listed as poor, and those that have been lifted out of poverty. For the 9 households escaped poverty from 2014 to 2017, County Party Secretary, the stationed group leader of the county, cadres of the village committee and the village groups have altogether carried out many door-to-door investigations to assess their income.
There are families that can't afford to educate their kids. How can you list other households with 5 or 6 children working away from home as poor?
Households with children having jobs no longer qualify as poor households.
He has 2 children and they're both working as migrant workers. How can you list them as poor?
When we make decisions, there are multiple reasons why we list someone as a poor. They were poor before they received the subsidies, but
After receiving the subsidies, and then everything is good?
School-age children are subsidized to access education.
In what way?
How to avoid the poverty inherited generation after generation? Education is an important method. In Gansu province, for one young girl, her hope is that by attending university, she will change her life. Compared with Beijing and Shanghai, Lanzhou is an underdeveloped small city. However, for Zhou Jing, this is the busiest place. She needs some time for the city life.
I feel very small and lonely in the big city. I don't know many people here. I want my parents to come here and see the big city for themselves, the Yellow River, and cruise on a boat, travel around, or climb a mountain.
The target of the Chinese government is, by 2020, everyone like Zhou Jing is able to attend good schools in poor areas. Zhou Jing's home is 600 kilometers away in a dry and mountainous area. Here, the government encourages partner assistance to ensure the 9-year compulsory education. Then, junior graduates are encouraged to go to developed areas for further study with financial support. Although Zhou Jing and her sister come from a registered poor family, such financial support covers their university expenses.